for joining.
Yeah, you're most welcome. My pleasure.
Great seeing you, Dr. Gill. This one seeing Gill. Great pleasure seeing you. Please, of course.
చేస్తాను. నేను రేపు వదిలేసాను disconnected.
Yes, KP, we can start it.
Right. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to today's session, Seeking Nanak. Today's event is brought to you by EduSikh. My name is KP Singh and I'm privileged to serve as the Master of Ceremony for today's session. Please do allow me to set the tone for today's session by introducing EduSikh to you. EduSikh, founded in 2019, has the core tenet of empowering the Sikh youth. Well, we do that by introducing them to the privileges brought about by education. At the same time, we at EduSikh derive great pride in our roots and in our mother tongue, Punjabi, and of course in our script, Gurumukhi. To this end, EduSikh has, prior to COVID-19, promoted the use of Gurumukhi by organizing Ma Boli competitions. On the occasion of the 550th birth anniversary of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, EduSikh was proud to give 550 scholarships to deserving students from all across India. Now, coming to the reason we've gathered here today, Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Guru Nanak, born in the year 1469, was one of the greatest religious innovators of all time, and of course, the founder of the Sikh religion. Guru Nanak's religious ideas draw on both Hindu and Islamic thought, but are far from just a synthesis of the two. Nanak was an original spiritual thinker and expressed his thoughts in an extraordinary poetry that forms the basis of Sikh scripture. Little is known about the life of Nanak, but Sikh tradition has a much loved set of stories or Janam Sakhis, which relate various incidents from his life and include many of his important teachings. Nanak was born around 40 miles from Lahore, now of course in Pakistan, and Sikh traditions teach that his birth and his early years were marked by many events that demonstrated that God had marked him out for something very special and was keeping a very, very keen, special eye out for him. One very famous story about Guru Nanak Dev Ji talks about his rebellion at the age of 11. At that age, Hindu boys of his caste would start to wear the sacred thread to distinguish them. Nanak refused, saying that people should be distinguished by the things they did and their individual qualities rather than by a thread. Nanak continued to demonstrate a radical spiritual streak, arguing with local holy men and sages, both Hindu and Muslim, that external things like pilgrimages, penances, and poverty were of far less spiritual importance than internal changes to the individual soul. He worked for a while as an accountant, but while still quite young, he decided to devote himself to spiritual matters. He was inspired by a powerful spiritual experience that gave him a vision of the true nature of God and confirmed his idea that the way to spiritual growth was through meditation and through living in a way that reflected the presence of the divine within each human being. In 1496, Nanak set out on a set of spiritual journeys through India, Tibet, and Arabia. These journeys lasted close to 30 years. During this period, he studied and debated with the learned men he met along the way, and as his ideas took shape, he began to teach a new route to spiritual fulfillment and good life. The last part of his life was spent at Kartarpur in the Punjab, where he was joined by many disciples that were attracted by his teachings. The most famous teachings attributed to Guru Nanak are that there is only one God and that all human beings can have direct access to God with no need for rituals or priests. His most radical social teachings denounced the caste system and taught that everyone is equal regardless of caste or gender. Everyone has a different take on the understanding of the mystery of life and, of course, of the teachings of Guru Nanak. Today, we at EduSikh bring to you the context of the understanding of 7 prominent thinkers and influencers with regard to what Nanak means to them. With that in mind, it's my absolute privilege to introduce to you Sardar Paramjit Singh. Paramjit Singh, he is of course, a co-compiler of this book that we're going to release in the next few minutes. He has served with great distinction in the civil services of India. He is, of course, the founding trustee of EduSikh, an NGO that focuses on the upliftment of the Sikh youth and the Sikh student community. The idea that is behind EduSikh is to raise the consciousness of the core belief of the youth in Sikhism, even as we celebrate their rising in the society on account of greater and better education. His core belief can be encapsulated in his motto, give till it hurts, and give more. That's my addition to it. He is also the managing trustee of the Dharma Bharati Mission, which serves the underprivileged sections of the society living in slums in India. Dharma Bharati Mission, known also as DBM, has a mission of hunger-free India, and to this end, has managed to provide close to 500,000 meals to slum children. Paramjit Singh visits schools and colleges to guide students for higher studies and competitions, especially for the civil services exam. I know that he is very, very keen that the Sikh youth also join the civil services in a big way. He is a great motivator, acting as a role model to all those who come into contact with him, studying hard to qualify for the competitive exams and to build a career. He picked up the love of books very early in his life. His passion for writing is something that he attributes as a gift from his mother. He is the author of the 100 must-read books of Punjabi authors, or read works of Punjabi authors, and the co-compiler of Seeking Nanak. Paramjit Singh was included as one of the 500 Sikh role models by a non-profit Ke Sambhal Prachar Sanstha. He was also conferred the Build India Award, among many such awards. The list just too exhaustive and too long for me to start to enumerate them. Let us, my dear audience, join our hands together to welcome and recognize Sardar Paramjit Singh.
Thanks, Kavar, for this lovely introduction. I don't know whether I deserve all that, what you said. So good evening and welcome to all. On behalf of EduSec and my fellow collaborators, Ishmeet and Charanjit Kaur, I extend a warm welcome to all those who have joined today for the launch of this book from all over the world. I also heartily welcome the 4 eminent personalities who have not only contributed to this book, but have very graciously agreed to do the honors of releasing the book and to share their views today. Some 30 such personalities have contributed to the book, and we plan to have a series of such functions where we can hear each one of them over a period of time. Today, of course, we have Ms. Inni Kaur from US, Amardeep Singh ji from Singapore, and Tushar Gandhi ji from Bombay, and Nirupma Dutt ji from Chandigarh. Before I talk about the book, let me give a brief introduction of EduSec, although Kavar has already given some details. EduSec was born in September 2019 with the aim of creating a progressive institution to commemorate the 550th birth anniversary of Guru Nanak, the founder of one of the most modern religions of the world, that is Sikhism. As an enduring tribute to his abiding memory, the main objectives of EduSec were identified as empowerment of Sikh youth through education, especially higher and professional education, while at the same time working towards the promotion of Punjabi language, literature, culture, and ethos, in fact, anything that would add value to the community and consequently to the world at large. In the short period of 1.5 years, EduSec has begun to direct the community's gaze towards the importance of education and the promotion of Ma Boli Punjabi. Our major projects have been scholarships to 550 young students across India, organizing the Ma Boli Olympiad, All India Punjabi and essay competitions, quiz competitions, and publication of the first book, that is Guru Nanak, the greatest progenitor of Punjabi literature, which was edited by Dr. Tejwant Singh Gill, and it was published in 2019 under the banner of EduSec Publications. We are very happy to see Dr. Gill has joined us today. So, Sat Sri Akal, sir, and welcome here. And now, of course, today we are releasing our second book, which is Seeking Nanak, which is a compilation to commemorate the 551st birth anniversary of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Some of the future programs that in EduSec that we propose to have is publication of 2 books every year, one on Sikh religion and one on Punjabi literature. And of course, we also plan to launch an online journal of Punjabi studies. Apart from that, we plan to have test of Punjabi language, and we want to start certified courses in Punjabi language and literature. We also will organize career guidance and competitive preparedness workshops for the degree college students and placement assistance for them in the industry. A selection of 10 scholars for full scholarship for sponsorship for the IS examinations. And lastly, but not the least, we want to institute 2 Young Writers Awards for writers below the age of 40, which will be given in the month of October every year. So this is an ambitious agenda, but we feel that the time for the idea has come, and we are hopeful that with the blessings and cooperation of the Sangat at large and with the grace of Vaiguru, we'll be able to achieve this agenda. Now, coming to the book that we are launching today, after the first book was warmly received, it was decided that we broaden the scope of our next book by focusing on various interpretations by scholars and non scholars on how the teachings of Guru Nanak are a touchstone for a life of value, and how the very practical aspects of his philosophy help us connect the material with the spiritual in our day to day lives. So, we invited 30 authors to contribute to what Nanak means to them. So, this book is an eclectic mix of personal essays, poetry, and articles related to the Guru's teaching, and some research papers. Thus, an interesting potpourri of ideas, thoughts, and musings. And the contributors are not only from the Sikh community in India, Pakistan, and the diaspora, but also from people belonging to other faiths, including Punjabis from West Punjab and even Sindhis who have been touched by the mystique of the faith of Baba Nanak. So, this book is therefore meant both for the initiated as well as the uninitiated. The lay readers will get a glimpse into the richness of thought and experience that an acquaintance with Guru Nanak brings with it. And for the scholarly, the insights by the contributors who have dedicated their lives to the understanding of Sikhi will help in opening newer vistas of the Gurbani. The plurality of views expressed in this book mirrors the free thinking and respect for human beings that Guru Nanak propagated, practiced, and stood for. In a world threatening to be ripped apart by divisive forces these days, it is this message that comes as an adhesive force and perhaps the single strongest ray of hope. It also scores the point that most of us in our life do not seek Nanak. And by that I mean we do not seek to understand or implement the values that the Guru talked about. We are content doing empty rituals and leading a farcical and meaningless life, despite having a treasure trove of wisdom amongst us. So we hope that this book, in which these eminent and learned contributors, through their personal records and the scholarly insights, have clearly brought out the message of Guru Nanak, will enable all of us to look within ourselves and seek our own Nanak and to discover him. We are extremely grateful to all the contributors for their cooperation in sending us their writing, sometimes at very short notice, and in helping us to meet the deadline. We take this opportunity to express our thanks to all of them for making this book a reality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paramjeet Singh ji. And with that now, we're going to have a look at a visual screening of the book before we officially release it.
Just a bit, I'm sharing the screen.
Fantastic. But I request now all the panelists to kindly hold the book up and officially release the book, please.
Yours and mine is not visible because of the cover.
All right.
So I think the other people, yes, Amardeep Singh, you can show the
Sure.
book.
The light is on, but it's not saying anything. The light is on, but it's not saying anything.
Hearty congratulations to all the
Yeah.
compilers. Hearty congratulations. With that, we now move.
Your vaccination letter got any serious side effects?
We now move to the first.
I was one person had an asthmatic attack on the fourth day.
I'm so sorry. We move to the first presenter of the day, and it's my privilege to introduce to you Nirupama Dutt. Nirupama Dutt is a highly accomplished Indian poet, journalist, and translator. She writes in English, Punjabi, and occasionally in Hindi. Her recent works include the biography of Punjab's Dalit icon, The Ballad of Bant Singh, and translation into English of Gulzar's anthology of poetry, Pluto. She writes poems in Punjabi and then translates them into English herself. A very senior journalist with over 40 years of experience, she has worked with leading Indian newspapers and journals. Nirupama Dutt is a poet, journalist, and translator of many seasons. She has received the Punjabi Academy Delhi Award for her collection of Punjabi poems,
What do you got?
Ik Nari Sambali Jai. She lives and works in Chandigarh, and we are highly privileged to have her present today to address us and share her insights into what Nanak means to her. Nirupama Dutt ji.
Battery 30.
Thank you so much. It is a privilege to be part of this beautiful book and among scholars to reckon with. I am very small in the scheme of things, but Guru Nanak is such a personality that draws people to him and his life. I begin with a little couplet. Reet te Babar dasi, Reet te Babar dasi, Ruha te usta raj si. O ki jeda akhda si, Ched mardane rabab. The sands were ruled by Babar. He ruled the souls. The one who would ask Mardana to play the rabab. This couplet by Sujit Pathar, soul speaks of the tradition of togetherness which came with Sikhi. And the founder Guru Nanak just not drawing precepts, but living and showing the way that there is no difference between one human being to another. And when I was asked to write for this, my feeling was to explore the relationship of Mardana and Guru Nanak. And so I enjoyed and liked writing the story, liked retelling the story. Also there were one or two reasons which led me to it. I remember we had gone to Lahore in 2006, and we were in the house of the famous poet, Najm, Sayyid Najm Hussain. And there was this Rababi singer there, Ghulam Muhammad Chand. And that program involved every Thursday, the writers of Pakistan Lahore would sit together and read the Sikh scriptures. And they were reading by Gurdas then. And after that, there would be music and the Gurbani would be sung. And Ghulam Muhammad Chand sang so soulfully. Of course, he was old by then, in abject poverty in Lahore, because as it is, music is not very suited to the Islamic state of affairs. Then music of the, another faith, but they had stuck to this tradition. He drew his lineage from, forefathers, like most Rababis do, looking back at Mardana. And one of our friends who was enterprising decided that she wanted to call Ghulam Muhammad Chand to Delhi. Now, it was not any big organization. There were no funds. She didn't know how she'd do it. Ghulam Muhammad Chand came with 3 of his musicians. One was a nephew, another one from outside, one was a son. And she managed to get the Habitat Center auditorium for free. And she organized the program with just a little one line of an invitation in the weekly newsletter. And what a crowd came there, and wrapped in attention and with a lot of love, they listened to Ghulam Muhammad Chand singing. Now, there was a difference in the way in which Gurbani is sung in Gurdwaras and by other Ragis compared to these, the Rababis. There was a great joyousness in the singing. They bring alive the words of the Gurbani and sing with a lot of joy, with a lot of celebration, and not very, not very strictly and in discipline, just as we were used to hearing in Gurdwaras. So, just earthen pot was put there. And this I'm talking of 2005 or 6. And by the end of the evening, there were people who were weeping. And by the end of the evening, the pot was full of whatever money anyone had in their purse. And they had collected 80,000 for Ghulam Muhammad Chand. And then his singing moved to Gurdwaras. Many of the Gurdwaras in Delhi opened their doors and allowed him to sing. And what went to the heart was that how much the people had missed the Rababis, how much they had missed their presence in the singing of the Gurbani. And, women would say, "Hi, Sade Mardane de aaye ne bacche, una de aaye ne vanshaj." Someone would take a ring and give of her finger. Whatever they had in possession would be given. And in the poorer quarters of Delhi, East Delhi, people would run to their homes and bring whatever was lying there which they could give, from quilts to bed sheets and bed covers. So this was what led me to explore this relationship between Mardana and Guru Nanak. Of course, poets before me had written extensively about it, and well-known poets. So, as all would know how the friendship began, he was the son of the Raidipoli village Marasi family, Dooms, and whose occupation is music. And Guru Nanak came from an upper-class Khatri family, yet he chose to sit with them and learn music. Sit with them, and the poet in him yearned to go to Mardana. And as the legend goes, the mother had named Mardana Marjana because her sons had died before Mardana. And, there is this way of thinking, this, the lore, the village lore or the myths that, if you give an unlucky name to a child, death will look away. So she named him Marjana. And Guru Nanak, after he befriended Mardana, who was good 10 years older to him, told the mother, Lakho, that no, from now on he'll be known as Mardana. Mardana. He will never die. And that is what happened. You know, as we go through the story of Guru Nanak, we cannot forget Mardana, because probably this was one companionship, a spiritual companionship, a personal friendship, which was the longest in the life of the Guru, consistent. And Mardana had the privilege of accompanying Guru Nanak through all his spiritual journeys, the Udasis, as we call them. And together they started the practice of Kirtan. They would together sing, and their Kirtan would be singing poetry, which was bringing people together, which was telling them that all these, rituals and myths and caste is not God-made. It is very much man-made. And so the two of them remained together and went on this mission together. I'll quote a few lines again from another poet. This is a very interesting poem. Babe di bani mardana gave, Baba apna uchriya aap sune hai, jodi khoob suhaye, Babe te mardana, Baba te mardana, ik rabab bajaye, Duja anhad baja. This is a poem by Amarjit Chandan, a few lines from it. It is called Baba Nanak te Baba Mardana. Now, this is something very daring to do. We do refer to Mardana as Pai Mardana, but to call him Baba, comparative to what the Guru was called, Mardana sings the words of Baba. Baba hears the words he uttered. One plays the rabab and the other utters words of boundless truth. And as we all know that it was in the early 20th century when the communal polarization was on, that the rababis were shunted out of the gurdwaras. And I remember one of the, singers, Surinder Singh, the Singh Bandhus, saying that was something which was a big onslaught in this tradition of togetherness of Sikhi. And it left a mark that something amiss had happened. And Bhisham Sani, in his novel Tamas, which was made into a film called Tamas by Govind Nihalani, shows that the Rababi has nowhere to go. He's shunted out, but yet he comes every day and stands outside the Gurdwara. So it was this tradition. And now we have the Pakistani scholar Harun Khalid, who has, traveled all over the places where Guru Nanak was in West Punjab and tried to understand this relationship of give and take. But I'll end by whatever little I had to say with a poem by Dr. Harbhajan Singh. It is a poem that, bemoans the loss of Mardana from Sikhi. Mera Nanak ikalla reh gaya, bahut din beet gaye, sangat vich Mardana nahi aaya, Mardana Guru da yaar si, ude sadke Guru de aase paase, dosti di mehak si, दूर मर्दाने दी नगरी चों कदे आवाज आउंदी है, मैं अपने शहर विच इकल्ला, मैनू नानक नहीं मिलता. So he has, seen the Indo-Pak relationship through this, the friendship of Guru Nanak and Mardana. My Nanak is alone. Mardana is absent from Sangat for long. Mardana was Guru's friend. Fragrance of friendship radiated from him. Far away from the fostered home of Mardana, a voice comes. I am alone here too. Nanak is not to be found. Thank you.
Thank you. That was so evocative, Nirupamaji. Really, really wonderful, inspiring, and you're so right. The connection was made via the soul, via, of course, the Rabab of Mardana ji. Now it's my privilege to introduce to you Tushar Gandhi. Tushar Arun Gandhi is the son of Arun Manilal Gandhi, grandson of Manilal Gandhi, and the great-grandson of Mahatma Gandhi. A true Gandhian, in March 2005, he led the 75th anniversary reenactment of the Dandi March. From 2007 to 2012, Tushar Gandhi was the goodwill ambassador of the CISRI ISP Intergovernmental Institution for the use of microalgae spirulina against malnutrition. Born on a train between Mumbai and Kolkata, he was raised in the Mumbai suburb of Santa Cruz. A Gandhian in spirit and in form, Tushar Gandhi is best known for having established in the year 1998 in Baroda, Gujarat, the Mahatma Gandhi Foundation, which is now located in Mumbai. A non-fiction book by him, Let Us Kill Gandhi, was published in 2007 and went on to become a bestseller in India. A simple man with very high thinking, it's my privilege to welcome Tushar Gandhi to address us. Tusharji, you'll have to unmute yourself, sir.
Perfect. Yes, now it is
Yes.
done.
Now it's good.
Thank you. I was trying to unmute myself, but I couldn't do it.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this privilege. And first, let me congratulate the whole team of compilers on compiling such a wonderful and very important book, Seeking Nanak, and thank them for making me a part of it. One of the reasons that I am very proud to be associated with this book is because it has always been my endeavor to liberate my great-grandfather from the mantle of a Mahatma, because I believe that by classifying him as a Mahatma, we sort of find an excuse not to aspire to become like him in a manner. And I think that would be the greatest disservice. And since history, if we look at it, we will see that the greatest disservice done to iconic identities is to turn them into divine identities, make them godlike, put them on a pedestal, and then convince ourselves that we are incapable of being that way, and then continue in our own manner without bothering to truly, emulate the great icons in deed and action. And the similarity that I saw between Guru Nanak Dev Ji and the way Bapu led his life was in the fact that they both believed in performance, and that's where Bapu also very famously said that an ounce of practice influences much more than a ton of preaching. And I think that was the central message of Guru Nanak Dev Ji also, where he talked about action and service as being more important. And the greatest, I think the greatness and the longevity of the greatness of Guru Nanak Dev Ji is that generally what happens is with the deification of an icon, comes the mythology about that icon, and then the reality of that person seems to get lost, and the corruption of the ideals come in, because mythology is something that can be so fascinating. So everything else is forgotten. And one of the best things to happen with Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and what I believe is maybe he endeavored to do it in that manner, is that he has not become a victim of mythology over the years. The way all the other godlike icons have been turned into myths, and there's so many miracles and mythology associated with them. Guru Nanak Dev Ji has been spared that, and that is where he is still one of the believable icons, one of the believable founders of a religion who is still human in the identity that we have of him. And I think that is the greatest thing that needs to be worshipped. When I was invited to write for this book, one of the things that I was fascinated by was Bapu's fascination with Guru Nanak Dev Ji's poetry and his writings and his bhajans, and the amount of time that those were sung in the regular daily prayers that took place in Bapu's ashrams. And it's sort of, if you look at the compilation in the collection of the prayers in the ashram, you will notice that there is a whole stream of the message that Guru Nanak Dev Ji's bhajans give to humanity, and which was very important for Bapu. Was the emphasis on service that was given. The other was about the message of oneness of God and equality amongst all human beings, and the kindness towards all life forms. These were the tenets that fascinated Bapu also, and I think that was the attraction that made him more and more fascinated, made him more fascinated by the teachings of the Guru. And I think Bapu also, in his way, adopted the Sufi ideologies. And I think the other greatness of Guru Nanak Dev Ji was he's the only follower of that Sufi ideology who actually founded a religion through that ideology. And so that also becomes a very important thing, because that is the unifying force that is so required, especially in this subcontinent, which was so wounded by the partition and the tragedy of the partition. We are still suffering from that. And if anything can heal the wounds of partition, I think it is the ideology of oneness that Guru Nanak Dev Ji preached and practiced throughout his life. And it's so fascinating that the preachers of the initial preachers of his ideology were of a different belief, and they were so much included in the oneness, and so many are still practicing that tradition, that is. And so that is what attracted me towards this thing. And while writing this, it actually became a kind of a pilgrimage for me, seeking Nanak myself, a guru. And you know, the other fascinating part of it is whenever somebody founds a religion, that religion sort of gets into an overdrive to convert that founder into a god. And here in Sikhism, Guru Nanak Dev Ji is still known as a guru, as a teacher, as a leader of life, somebody who guides us through life. And so that is what I think is the greatness of that man and the everlasting greatness of that man. I am not a scholar. I'm very honored to be made a part of the scholastic group. I'm not a scholar at all. I'm a lay person who is a seeker after knowledge. And this experience has furthered my wisdom in life and enhanced my journey in life. So I think I will stop over here and just express my gratitude to the faith that Guru Nanak founded, the religion that Guru Nanak founded, which is today very essential to become the cement that will once again bond all of us together in this subcontinent when we see such divisive forces becoming so loud and in such a majority in our society, in this whole hemisphere which was under the influence of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. I think his message of unity and oneness becomes critically important for us today. And so that is another very great function that this book, I hope, will achieve. So thank you very much once again for this opportunity, both for inviting me to write in this book and also making me a part of this function. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tusharji. Thank you so much. And now it's my absolute privilege to introduce to you one of the co-compilers of this book, Charanjit Kaurji. Dr. Charanjit Kaur is a retired academician and she has taught English literature to undergraduate and postgraduate classes and has been a research guide for the MPhil and PhD degrees. Post-retirement, she has been actively associated as a consultant editor with the research and archival organization SPARROW, which stands for Sound and Picture Archives for Research on Women. Charanjit Kaur has served as the chief editor of the e-journal Muse India, and at present she is serving as a contributory editor for Indian writing in English. In a long association with Muse India, since 2007, she has worked on several special features for them, including writing features on trauma literature, English language creative writing and translation, German literature, among others. Her areas of interest include Gandhian thought, Indian literature, cinema studies, continental literature and women's writings, and gender studies. She has published research articles in some of these areas and has worked on them in her stint as an associate at the Indian Institute of Advanced Study, Shimla. Charanjit Kaur is the author of 2 poetry books, Mirror Image and Other Poems, and The Songs from the Hills. And her poetry and short stories have been published in several literary journals and in anthologies. Ladies and gentlemen, please do welcome Dr. Charanjit Kaur, one of the 3 co-compilers of Seeking Nanak.
Thank you, Mr. K.P. Singh ji, for the warm introduction. And it is my greatest pleasure to be among such a hallowed audience today. I'm among the best minds one could ask for. Okay. And listening to our 2 earlier speakers, I have been interacting with Paramjit Singh ji so often in the whole of the last 1 year for this book, and before that also for the earlier book that was published, that, well, what do I say about him? About Nirupa Dutt and Tushar Gandhi also, I do follow their work whenever it is possible, and I've always been impressed with Nirupa Dutt's syncretic approach. And I'm sure in the very short time she spoke today also, that approach stood out. Because you see, she brings insights from Punjabi poetry, Punjabi literature, current situation, contemporary affairs, and that fine sensibility which brings things together. And I think I actually discovered Nirupama uh, that when I read her work in the Sparrow archives. And that is when I started taking an interest in her work. I went to her poetry. I do read all her writing in the newspapers now. And of course, her biography of Bhagat Singh. Now, the way she has brought various strands together in the contribution she has made to our essay shows a deep humanistic approach, and an approach which tells you that this is how a society is going to be regenerated. And I think most of her writings reflect this urge for the regeneration of society. So when she talks about Mardana and Guru Nanak, it is the human element that she stresses. And I think this is the highlight of what she has written. With Tushar Gandhi, again, when he says the humanization of icons, when he says that Bapu has to be de-iconicized, and Guru Nanak has never been created into that kind of a divine icon who is worshipped in the way other religious icons are worshipped. I would like to add, Tusharji, that perhaps it is because, you know, what you call mythology, it has not been created because in Sikh history, more focus has been placed on the writings and the community work of the gurus rather than on their personal lives. And that is why I think we have more writing and more literature available about their literature and about their community work rather than about their personal lives. I mean, I would like to link it with what we say. Our religion, Sikhism, says Guru Granth Ji Manyo. The Granth is more important than anything else. Knowledge is more important. So I suppose this is one way in which we could think of even focusing on the work of Mahatma Gandhi rather than the persona of Mahatma Gandhi. I think this would be a very good lead for us to take. And I think over the years, this has happened. For example, in uh, the centenary year of Hind Swaraj, much work was produced on Hind Swaraj rather than on the person. Okay, so I think this was it. Now, I began abruptly, so my Sat Sri Akal and greetings to everybody. And I'm so happy to be here. And I welcome everyone, the panelists, the contributors, the people who have joined us, and everyone who made seeking Nanak an enriching experience for us and for the readers who will be coming to the book now. Our journey of 1 year has been extremely fulfilling, and the entries kept on coming in till late October. Okay, and every entry that came in was something that touched us because we found that all the 21 stalwart contributors had put in their heart, their soul, and their mind into their writing. And that is why, doing the compiling of the book, as I was saying earlier, we didn't have to do any editing. I mean, we were looking at the work of stalwarts. So where was the question of editing? It was the work of stalwarts. And therefore, we were compiling. We were just facilitating the whole work. And as the contributions came in, our confidence and faith in the work that we were producing rose higher and higher. And then when we went ahead with the publication, it was with the full confidence that it was your work that we were just, let us say, holding as a trust for the people who will be reading it later on. So thank you all of, I would like to thank everyone for having placed this trust in EduSIC and in us when you sent in your contributions. Now, I would like to introduce this book. This is Guru Nanak, the greatest progenitor of Punjabi literature, edited by Professor Dr. Tejwant Singh Gill. This was the first book that we published on the 550th year of the birth anniversary of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And we must thank Dr. Gill for having given his consent and gone through the entire process of getting this book ready with us. This was actually produced for Muse India. And I would also like to thank the Muse India editors team for giving us the permission to get this book ready in record time. So let us say that Seeking Nanak began with this book. And then we felt that yes, we must do something to carry forward the tradition. So Dr. Gill, thank you very much. We owe you a great debt. Seeking Nanak owes a great debt to you and to your work. Now, I would like to just, I will not be able to speak in detail about all the contributions, but I would just like to mention, at least within the limited time, all the contributors who have made this book possible and who, many of whom are here with us. Now we have the poems which came in from Kashyana Singh from the US, Ishmeet Kaur, Sandhya Nair, Sarabjit Garcha, who sent in, I think we got his poem somewhere in October itself, in October. And Simrat Gagan sent us the poem, Punjabi poem, we asked her for it, which she had written on the occasion of the opening of the Kartarpur Sahib corridor. And then we translated it and used it in our book. This poem I translated with the help of Surinder Kaur Chhabra, who helped me a great deal in understanding the nuances of the Punjabi language, which I was finding a little difficult to negotiate. Now, when we decided to expand the scope of the book, the idea was that Guru Nanak belongs to us, but does not belong only to us. The teachings reach far and wide. And there are many people I have come across who tell me that their lives have been touched by the teachings of Guru Nanak. From different faiths, people from different areas writing about their association with Guru Nanak. And we had these personal accounts by Gangamukhi, Kartik Venkatesh, Kabir Bedi, Satram Vairani. And then Ishmeet had this wonderful idea of interviewing Sindhi women in Shimla. And she has interviewed around four or five women who talk about their personal experiences. In fact, these are essays which speak of faith. But then the faith that Seeking Nanak explores is not the faith of is not a passive kind of faith. It is a faith which is the faith of an active mind, an alert mind, a mind that is in the process of being awakened. That is why the seeking becomes important. Then we have journeys as central to an understanding of the message and the life of, not only the life, but the heritage of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And Harun Khalid and Amardeep Singh Ji, their contributions took this aspect into consideration. Then there are these scholarly essays which speak of, which are the result of deep, dedicated and ongoing study of Gurbani. And we have translations interposed within the essays and independent translations also. So we have the scholarly essays by Harinder Singh, Harmeet Shah Singh, Kuljeet Singh, Asha Mari Kaur, Jaswant Singh, Jagteej Singh, Sakun Singh, Nasir Gujral, Pushpinder Sayal, Inni Kaur, and Jasleen Bhavi. Then there were the other essays which spoke of not something between the personal and the scholarly. The reflective essays, as I would call them, where there was a reflection on the aspects of the message which Guru Nanak gives us. And this we have in the work of Nirupama Dutt, Divesh Maini, again Amardeep Singh, Mahmood Awan, Paramjeet Singh himself, and Iqtidar Chima. Now this is a very, very brief overview of the whole book. I wish I could say at least a sentence about each of the essays, but then that would take too long. The book is there for everybody to read now. One thing that I have found very, very touching in this book was that for me, among other things, the book Seeking Nanak, which includes commentaries on Japji Sahib, Aarti, Asa Diwan, Siddh Goshtis, the Varamaha, and various shabads and stanzas from the writings of Guru Nanak, and also the translations. I think one of the powers that moved me in this book was that it showed me the power of translation. There was, it was not translation as such, but if you take a look at the book, you will also see that it is a lesson in translation itself. It is an exercise in translation itself. Look at the translations of Indi Ji, for example. There is so much of scholarship in it. And I'm just mentioning one person. Now, within the texts, within the essays, there are translations. Within the poems, there are translations. So you see, reaching out to a wider audience through the power of translation, I think is one thing that made me, that makes this book very special for me. Because when you translate a book or when you come across a translation, like the reader, the translator also gives you a new perspective, a new lens with which you see what already was there in front of you. So a new perspective is added. And then that perspective enriches you in various ways. So I think one of the strengths of what I was reading was the understanding of this power of translation. Now, this is a very, very tentative categorization. I'm sure most of the categories overlap, but I was very, very keen to mention the contribution of each and every person. I must thank you all for being with us, for being part of this spiritual and intellectual exercise that we undertook together. Thank you very much. And I now return to you to Mr. KP Singh.
Thank you so much. That was such a wonderful description of the genesis of the book and the content. A very scholarly description of everything. Dr. Charanjit Singh, thank you. Charanjit Kaurji, thank you so much. Moving onwards now, it is my privilege to introduce to you Inni Kaur. Inni Kaur is a seeker of knowledge of why and why not. A traveler on God's earth, she's still figuring out who am I. She does not consider her abode to be earth, and she travels seamlessly through centuries. In this century, she is fulfilling her role with predilection as a poet, a writer, an artist, and an educator. She has spoken at the US Office of the Pentagon Chaplain, at various universities, as well as at many interfaith and community gatherings. Inni Kaur's narratives are hidden in her books, Journey with the Gurus, Sakhi Time with Naniji, Thank You Vaheguru, Daddy's Turban, and The Story of Us. She is candid in accepting that she captures verse floating in the ethers and adopts those as her own. Resultantly, what flows on her canvas comes from the deepest recesses of her being. To quote her, I know not what will emerge, I trust the process. All I know is that my canvas doesn't lie. She believes that life is a gift, every breath is precious, and every day is a celebration. Wonderful philosophy. Please do put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome Inni Kaur.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. We are in different time zones. So good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you to the organizers for this wonderful event. I got to meet people who I haven't met in a while, and I got to actually meet Nirupananda, which we've been trying to meet over, when I was in Chandigarh for a brief time. So this is really a pleasure. And You know, I was listening to your introduction of Pacha and to the other two speakers as well. And I come to you actually as a practitioner. I am the practitioner of this faith. Yes, seeking Nanak is important. Seeking Nanak he is Nanak to one and all. But he has become Guru Nanak to me through his words, through his songs. And that's when the relationship changed. And then as I got deeper into the Guru part of Nanak, he became my Sahib, because he became my Pacha. He's the one I take orders from. Sovereign of the sovereigns is your Pacha. He is where I owe my allegiance to. So the journey from seeking Nanak to becoming the Guru Nanak for an individual and then to the Sahib is a long one. And we are on this path and there are many who are on this path. So when you say the women in the Sindhi women are singing him, and when Amardeep in his wonderful books writes, you know, in Pakistan he found people singing him in the nooks and crannies. Yes, and when Nirupa Dutt says, yes, in Lahore, there she was not expecting anything, and to hear the voice, the song of the Baba moved her so much. And that is the power of the song. So what did he actually say? What did he begin with? He began with one. We are one. If we can understand, if we can even get into that realization, what that Ik Onkar is. Ik, there is only one. And then he moves on and tells us, Nako Hindu, Nako Musliman. What is he saying? We are one. And then he further says, Man, tu jyot saroop hai, apna mool pehchan. Mind, you are a spark of divine light. Recognize your origin. So when we recognize that we are a spark of divinity, then our every action will flow from that. So the recognition that there is only oneness, there is only one, and we are a spark of that one. That is the message of my Pacha. And to encounter Nanak, to seek Nanak, you can seek him everywhere. But to meet Nanak, you will meet him in his work, in his song. So when you encounter the song of Nanak, you will enter into a dimension of Nanak, and there you will meet him. And he is eternal. There is no time and space. He is for all, because the song is never for one. And I want to take you into the journey of this article. What I wrote about was when I came to the faith, like everyone. Yes, I had submitted. Yes, I was a practitioner. But there were these lingering questions, because ultimately there was a very strong part of me of being a renunciate, of I don't need to be here. I need to be on a mountaintop and just be with whatever you call that force, whatever you call divinity. And then I encountered in the scripture, in the Guru Granth, which we consider as our Sahib, as our ultimate, because we owe our allegiance to the Guru Granth Sahib. I encountered a composition of his that changed my life to a deep extent. And I came down from that mountaintop. And that was his dialogue with the Siddhs up in the mountains. And it is titled Siddh Ghost, which is, it's a dialogue, it's a discussion. And think about it. He is right up there and he's talking to, the Siddhs are really the knowers, the ultimate ones of that knowledge. And he is having a dialogue with them. And in that, I became a listener. And I listened to that dialogue, because the questions which the Siddhs were asking him were my questions. How do you live in this world? We have chosen to live outside. We are up on the mountaintop. Our workers, our followers, our people who we have trained are in the world. And the Guru speaks. And what he says is, you need to be down there. You know what your preachers are doing down there? They are hoodwinking the people. They're giving them bracelets. They're giving them charms. They're getting money. They're dancing. And they are actually not preaching. They are not showing the way. They are confusing the people. So you need to come down from your mountain and you need to be walking with the people. What use of this knowledge? What use of this attainment if you cannot uplift the people, if you cannot feel their pain? He was in prison. He was imprisoned by Babur. And he writes about it. So this is what I encountered in Siddh Ghosh. And this is what I have brought out, hopefully, for you to understand, for the audience to appreciate. Because the questions which the Siddhs asked 550 years ago are our questions of today. And that is why when we say Bani is timeless, Bani is eternal, because the questions of the human being have not changed. They are the same questions. And if you need the answers, and if your quest is deep, you will seek the answers wherever your path takes you. Mine took me here. I traveled through many, but the head fell here. So there is something here, and Nirupana that spoke so beautifully about the relationship between Bhai Mardana and Guru Sahib. Yes, you know, Mardana became eternal because wherever Pacha is mentioned, there is Mardana mentioned too. Wherever a Sikh is mentioned, wherever a Sikh shines, hopefully people will say, what does he follow? What does she follow? And it will be the fragrance of the Baba, will be the fragrance of the Guru, will be the fragrance of my Pacha. You know, what can I tell you about the smorgasbord of seeking Nanak? There is something there for everyone at every point in time in their life, what they will encounter. There are people who are deeply immersed in the teachings of the Guru. There are people who are encountering him from a different perspective. It is how you look at the book, how you look at the essay is actually dependent on your place in your journey. So look at this book as an offering to explore, to maybe dive deeper into something that touches you. And it may not be every essay. It cannot be every essay. It cannot be every translation, but there will be something there in there that speaks to you. So seek that out, because that's the part of the seeking. In this essay also, it would be remiss of me if I didn't say, you know, I am with the Sikh Research Institute, and five of my colleagues have also contributed to this book. So if you look at it in that light, I mean, 6 of our essays are in this book. And we are very grateful to the team that you reached out to us for these essays, and we were able to do that. So encounter the book, enjoy the fragrance, enjoy the beauty, enjoy the aesthetics, but there's something far deeper in there. For the ones who really want to know where they should maybe look at, my only thing would be look at his songs, dive deep into his songs, and they are in the Guru Granth. Begin, if you can't, like I did, with the translations. Inapt as they were, there is something there. And look at these translations as people who have translated it with finite wisdom trying to translate something which is infinite. So it comes with baggage, the translations. The translations come with, because I am a translator and therefore I speak from that perspective, they come from a very limited understanding. Do not take offense when it does not speak to your mindset, because they come from imperfect beings and the Shabad is perfect. So an imperfect being is translating something which is perfection. There is bound to be a gap. Accept that gap as a shortcoming of us, as we who journey into this and long to bring you the fragrance, bring the fragrance. Because, you know, the name of the divine, my mother would say, and I have heard this from someone else, Rab da na uste pagat den den. The ones who are immersed in the divine then give the name to the divine, because it comes from that place of what they are experiencing. So when we say Hari in Bani, it is the one who's all-pervading. When we use the word Bhagwan, it is the adorable. And when we use the word Ram, it is jo Ramya hoya. Who is that charmer? So look at these words in that light, and these experiences of the contributors, which we put before you in our very limited capacity. And I hope you will enjoy the book. I hope you will look at it as a humble attempt by the three compilers who have taken it upon themselves to bring together a collection for a larger audience. Thank you so much for having me. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki
Vaheguru Ji
Fateh.
Ki Fateh. Fantastic. So from the finite mind, we're trying to understand the infinite. I think those are wonderful, immortal words. Thank you for that very, very inspiring, very thought-provoking group of words. And now moving to our next presenter, it's my privilege to introduce to you Amardeep Singh. Amardeep Singh was born in Gorakhpur in India and has lived in India, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Educated at the Doon School, he has pursued electronics engineering at the Manipal Institute of Technology and Masters in Business Administration at the University of Chicago. He has served in the corporate sector. Well, he served in the corporate sector for 25 years and was the head of revenue generation and management for the Asia Pacific region at Indian Express in Singapore. Amardeep Singh has extensively researched the remnants of the Sikh legacy in Pakistan and documented them in two books entitled Lost Heritage, The Sikh Legacy in Pakistan, and The Quest Continues, Lost Heritage, The Sikh Legacy in Pakistan. He's also produced two visual film documentaries, Trasadi Roo, Peering Soul, Peering Warrior, in which he presented his field explorations across Pakistan, both of which are available on YouTube. Since October 2018, Amardeep Singh is engaged in the making of a 24-episode documentary series entitled Allegory, a tapestry of Guru Nanak's travels, for which he has traveled across the entire landscape covering Guru Nanak's life journey, as documented in the oldest Janam Sakhi texts. The series is scheduled to start screening in the fourth quarter of 2021. He has traveled vastly, following the journey of Guru Nanak, and it's our privilege to welcome him to share his learning. Amardeep Singh Ji. You'll have to unmute yourself, sir. Just a moment. Yeah, Yanji.
Okay, I'm
you're
there.
okay.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to unmute.
Sorry.
unmute me.
Sorry.
No worries.
I'm very sorry. Yeah.
So to air is human, Paramjit ji, it's not an Indian Express, but American Express. I wish I could join a publication organization, but I was working for financial sector, American
My
Express.
bad.
Thank you very much. Uh, Congratulations to the team for compiling the book, which is a fabulous collection of thought-provoking articles. I really enjoyed reading the sections on the Nanak Panthis, the Sindhi communities, and the others. And I thank you for giving space to that because that's going to be the theme of my subject today. But before I start, I must acknowledge that the article that I contributed in this one, Nanak's philosophy, universal brotherhood, benevolence for all, and peace. Uh, Actually, it's a it's a combined article written between me and my wife, Vinender Kaur. And when Paramjeet approached me to contribute something, we were in the midst of our journeys and the making of the documentary, and we didn't have the bandwidth. So I offered him the paper that we read at the Vatican. So we were invited to read at the Vatican on the 550th celebration, and I feel it's my duty to acknowledge Kaur's contribution into this article also. Otherwise, it would not have been possible to do this, right? Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity. Uh, in the few minutes that I've been given today, what I want to do is quickly go through some snippets of the expansive Nanak Panth, which I feel we own the responsibility to nurture. Lot has been lost. Guru Nanak is eternal, and if he is eternal, his thought and his community and his message of oneness needs to be our responsibility to maintain as an eternal philosophy. And that can only be so if we accept one and all. Otherwise, it's a mere lip service. And why I feel this is important is because Guru Nanak, they often said, na ko Hindu, na Musalman, at the Sultanpur Lodi after emerging from Bain River. Fact is, Guru Nanak wrote nothing about his life. That's a fact. And all he did was gave us a large repository of spiritual wisdom through which we can start understanding and unraveling the Guru Nanak to the way our mind's perceptions are and how we can actually understand him. So we'll be always limited to understand him, but he's written nothing about his life. And yet we say that he said, na ko Hindu, na Musalman. Actually, if you say what he wrote, if you see what he wrote, it's in Gurbani and it's in Rag Basant. What he says is, Eko Dharam, Dhere Sach Koi. Eko Dharam, Dhere Sach Koi. He is talking in a sense what people have interpreted as na ko na Hindu, na Musalman. Actually, what he's saying is, there is only one religion. If you translate dharam as religion, because dharam is not, in my mind, the myopic definition of religion as we see it today. Dharam word is very big in the Indic culture. And then Guru Nanak is saying, truth is the only dharam. And remain steadfast. In a sense, what he's saying to the limited minds of ours is that yes, na ko Hindu, na Musalman, na ko Sikh, na ko Isai. We can go on and expand that definition. But then, in the expansive journeys that I've had the opportunities to undertake, my question has always been as to where are those strands of Nanak in the present 21st century, which we have left, which we have forgotten. We bound the Guru Nanak, as I know, through his words, into the bricks and mortars of our Gurdwaras. Guru Nanak cannot be found in the Gurdwaras, I believe. Guru Nanak has to be found everywhere. And if I'm trying to understand Guru Nanak, I'm not trying to find him in the Gurdwaras. Don't get me wrong. I respect the Gurdwaras, I respect the scriptures, but the journey is more expansive. I'm trying to understand Guru Nanak from the temples that he went to the Jogi sites that he went to the Sufi shrines that he went to, what was he giving as a message? The tangible is a mere excuse to lead us into the intangible understanding of Guru Nanak, which is of importance to my mind. And therefore, in this expansive journey that we have been doing, it's titled as Allegory. And what is allegory? Allegory is a massive metaphor which encompasses all metaphors because Nanak writes only in metaphors. If you have to understand Nanak, the word dharma that he uses, which we interpret as religion, actually is much bigger. And he writes in his Bani only in metaphors. To understand Nanak, you have to unravel the bigger metaphor, which is the allegory. That's what we are trying to unravel through his journeys. It's not a journey to the physical sides, but it's a journey of our soul to understand Nanak. I think that's the essence. I just want to take a few minutes and then show you a few slides to see what we have seen in to show you what we have experienced in our journeys. What got us here is after I left American Express in 2014, I've been basically on the road since then. And the first expansive journey was traveling across 126 cities and villages across Pakistan. From Baltistan, behind Kargil, to Balochistan, Sindh, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Punjab. I've had an opportunity to see a lot. And I think it's a blessing that's been given because people yearn for this. And on this journey, I've had a large opportunity to witness the believers of Nanak who cannot be understood today in the East Punjab, unfortunately. And these are the Bansri Lals in Swat. Today, I think Dada Reva Chand probably is attending this session. And if he's there, Dadaji, Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal Aapko. Dada Reva Chand has traveled with me deep inside till Balochistan. He's close to his 80s, but still filled with energy, a believer of Nanak. And if you see him, you'll understand what Nanak Panthi culture is. From Shikarpur, we've traveled up till the Hinglaj together. Thank him for that. And that then leads us in phases, a second journey which we have been able to perform from the source, Mansarovar, Kailash, up till the basin of Arabian Sea, basin of the Indus River at the Arabian Sea, an entire mapping of the river Indus from Nanak and Sikh legacy perspective. Because much of our legacy has been destroyed because of the partitioning of the Indian subcontinent. We are scattered around the world, and it's given me a lot of insights to understand who we were and where we stand today. And that then led us to this question of why is it that Guru Nanak's journey cannot be replicated in its entirety today? There are two big problems here. The first big problem is the geography that we have to traverse is divided into sovereign nations which do not permit you free access. Even if I can get into, let's say, Pakistan, the limitation is either in the mindsets or by the establishment to be permitted to only go to Nankana Sahib, Panja Sahib, Kartarpur Sahib. But Guru Nanak's travels are not into these regions alone. It's expansive across Sufi shrines, Hindu Jogi shrines, the Hindu shrines, and so on and so forth. How do you get into those places? It's a big challenge. And so is in Afghanistan, so is in Iraq, so is it in Tibet. How do you go from Kailash Mansarovar through Himachal, through which area he's actually come into that region? It's a big challenge. That's number one. The second is a bigger challenge is the narrative of Guru Nanak. We often say this laughingly, jokingly, is that Nanak is continuing to travel in present times. Guru Nanak is unstoppable because the men of faith are making him travel everywhere. And as I said in the beginning, Guru Nanak has written nothing about his travels. So we have to understand him from his metaphors, from his other things. But men of faith have written about his travels, and we cannot throw the baby with the bathtub away. You may not accept the Janam Sakhis. You may find them not connecting with your mindset. But then that's your limitation. Men of faith have written something. I'm not saying they're 100% correct. you to some direction, and therefore it becomes our responsibility to interpret them and give them a context, and then use the angle as the Gurbani, the writings that he has written, to understand what his journeys could have been. But Guru Nanak in the present 21st century is unstoppable because people of men of faith are making him travel everywhere. So therefore, we are looking at the oldest Janam Sakhi texts up till 160 years after his lifetime, which were written, and only following that, because in present times, there's a YouTube video in which you can see, people have also taken him to USA. So where do you stop it? And so therefore, we've chosen to draw a line. It's a maze to unravel. I'm not going to get more into that. I just want to show you 3 or 4 slides with some videos. So I'll just share the screen and we'll move on. And I'm showing you the strands of the Nanak Panthi culture, the broader Nanak Panthis, the believers of Nanak who are beyond the Khalsa Sikh definition that we're defining. Because Nanak has to be understood from that culture also. So I'm just going to share this. Uh, so I'm just share sound. Okay. So I'm going to show this in Pakistan when we were filming. We've had great amount of opportunities to interact with the Rababi traditions. In Afghanistan, a vibrant culture of the Muslims singing the Bani of Guru Nanak in Gurdwaras, which stopped after the Russian invasion. We were fortunate to go there and request the descendants of that community to help us understand what their forefathers were singing or what their father was singing. And it took them about 2-3 days, but they remember, they recalled it, and then they actually recorded one for us. But this is not from there. This is from, and that you'll see in the documentary when it comes out. But this is from Pakistan, one of the strands of the Rababi tradition. This is in their home itself, and this is a videographer Salman recording it. Often people ask me, who's that person on the extreme side, on the right hand side? Is he a Sikh? And I say, no, this is an entire Muslim Jatha, the descendants of the Rababi tradition, the Muslims. None of them is a Sikh out here. Uh, just strands, right? This may not be the most optimal long traditions. Keep in mind, these are people whom partition has severed from a tradition, and they are basically in present day fending themselves by being uh, day laborers, and therefore when they lift gravel for the construction sites, their throats have been actually damaged, and whatever they're doing, they're maintaining it. They're trying hard to maintain a tradition, right? I want to take you deep down, and this is I thank Dada Reva Chand for giving us an opportunity to go to Khatwari Darbar. You all are from the Mumbai area. You would associate with the Sindhi Khatwari Darbar out there, but this is the original Khatwari Darbar in Sindh, where I just want to show you how the Sindhi Hindus, as we call them Hindus, but they all are believers of Nanak. I don't know what to define between Hindu and Sikh and Muslim, but it's all about oneness. But see how they give respect to the Guru Granth Sahib.
We are at the Khatwari Darbar in Shikarpur. The beauty of Sindh is that the Nanak Panthi culture, it basically assimilates Hinduism, Sufism, Sikhism, and the Guru Granth Sahib is the key fulcrum scripture that you find in this Darbar. It's kept at 3 places, but essentially the practices that are there, we see this one Sindhi person has come, how he bows in front of the Guru Granth Sahib. And this is a very unique practice that they go below the Granth Sahib and they lie down, bow down, and then pay their respects. This Khatwari Darbar is set up in the memory of Bhai Kanhaiya, the one who started the Red Cross. He was with Guru Gobind Singh, and he was sent later on to Sindh to basically spread Sikhism. So Khatwari Darbar, Shikarpur.
So the effort that they take actually to give respect is commendable, right? And I want to show something. There are two impressions I'm showing out here. The left one, I'll prefer not to name the site because I'm very cautious of today's divided mindsets, and I don't want to put any kind of pressure on this site that people start going there and questioning and so on and so forth. So, but all I can say is this is in India, right? I just want to show you this is dating back to early 18th century, early 1800s, right? And if you see on the left-hand side, in this shrine, which is in the Gangetic belt, it's not in Punjab, it's in the deep inside in the Gangetic belt. At the bottom, you see in Hindi, it's written Shabad Choki, and if you see, it's all people dressed up as Sikhs, and they're playing the saranda, and there's prasad being given out, and there's sarangi being played, and this shows a Kirtan Choki, Shabad Choki, but it's written in Hindi, Shabad Choki. Interestingly, on top is written in Gurmukhi, Sad Sangarji. This is the ironic, it's not ironic, I'll say this is the interesting intermingling aspect I see. Sad Sangarji, and it's showing the diversity of people who are engaged in a procession to celebrate an event related to Guru Nanak, right? This is the tradition which has got unfortunately fragmented. For reasons that I don't think we can get out here, but I want to show on the right-hand side, this is from Pakistan. In Sindh, a plaque which I only unraveled the deep severing of the tradition insights in my third trip to this place. It is at the Saat Bila temple at the entrance. If you look at it, on top Ikonkar, it's written as Shri Guru Shri Chandji Devji Masahai, and it's covered. It's circled. Why have I circled it? I'll tell you. Beneath we see Pali, Jithe Basan Saad Jan, So Than Suhanda. And the bottom line, Nanak Jache. This is a verse of Guru Nanak from Guru Granth Sahib. So pretty much Guru Nanak is a fulcrum inside this shrine. What you see on the third line on top, Eko Shri Guru Bankhandi Ji Sahib. Now who is Bankhandi? Interestingly, Bankhandi in the 1700s was a Udasin saint from Nepal who came to Sindh and took the Guru Nanak's message far and wide. And a Nepali saint learning Gurmukhi and taking the message of Guru Nanak far and wide should give you an indication what was the impact of Guru Nanak across the society. And top where I actually covered Shri Chandji Masai, I realized this only after 3 trips to this place. Because actually deep down, if you look at it, it's written Ekankar Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Sahai. And somewhere, someone has now dug that out, and with a smaller pen, and you can see the writing, it's written as Shri Chandji. And this, I will stop here. If we go back into our history, somewhere we have severed, we've fractured our traditions that people then have had reasons there would be, I will not get into that, to remove the name of Nanak. Nanak's name is still there in the verse below, but on top it's been removed and overwritten by Shri Chand, who was his son. What was the reason? We need to ask ourselves about that, and it's a different topic altogether, but this is the Nanak Panthi culture which was there, but got fractured, and you see that. Deep down in Afghanistan, on the left-hand side, Babuda Begum, the AK-47, invites us to her home when we were filming out there. This is in Prem Nagar colony. Prem Nagar is a place where the Nanak Panthi culture thrived, and right now there's no one living there. And when she saw us there, she invited us home, and she recalled her days when the Sikhs and the Hindus, basically, as we see the divided population, but they all Nanak Panthis. The West, all which you get from East Punjab, the divisions don't exist. In Afghanistan, every so-called Hindu or so-called Sikh is a believer of Nanak, right? And she then tells us about the various stories of her past, and there's no one left. The Gurdwara is totally bombed, shelled out, and she gives her AK-47 to her 16-year-old boy and tells her, tells him to give protection to us. On the right-hand side, I want to show this picture from Gardes. A young man comes and actually hugs us, and he tells me in Pashto, tell your community to come back and remake the Gurdwara here, because I want to relive the days I used to eat langar out here. This is a Muslim telling us this. The lady is a Muslim, but these are the memories of the past which we as humanity have fractured it, right? And I'm going to stop here with the last one, or second last one. This is a very, very touching video. It makes me cry even in present times. This is in Kandhar. The last standing Nanak Panthi, his name is Dr. Raghunath. The last person, the entire Sikh and Hindu communities left Kandhar. Temples, gurdwaras are all scattered, all abandoned lying there. Hear what he talks about. Because when we reached there, just a few months before that time, some of us from our community decided in Kandhar, there are a lot of Nanak Panthis around and Sikhs around in Kabul and other places. They decided that Raghunath is not capable of taking care of Guru Granth Sahib. The only man in Kandhar who has a Guru Granth Sahib, and whatever be his restricted situations, he's taking care of it out there in his own limited ways. They decided and they took the Guru Granth Sahib away from Kandhar and took it to Kabul. And look at the pain in which he's talking to me.
बुराई कुछ समझना नहीं नादान लोग जो समझदार लोग नहीं ये सारा दुख है सारी जगह चाहिए.
This is the greatness of Dr. Raghunath, that even after this painful experience, he just says, Nadan mein log. They're ignorant people who don't understand. And this is the positive signs. Nirupama ji talked about her interaction with the Rababi tradition at Najam Hussain Saeed's place. This is at Najam Hussain Saeed's place. She's talked about, I think, 2005, 2006. Up till last year, 2020, they still come together and they take one Shabad of Guru Granth Sahib, Guru Nanak, by Gurdas, different Sikh Gurus, not just the Sikh Gurus, Gita, some Sufi Kalams, and they interpret it and they talk as a group about it in 1 to 2 hour session. These are all Muslims, right, in Lahore. And this is the positivity that I cherish from these interactions. On the right-hand side, when I look at Dera Sahib, there's a Sikh sitting at the Tawa, and there's a Muslim playing the tabla. There are Sindhi Hindus doing kirtan. This is the vision of Nanak that I have. And I leave this with the profound question that for the Nanak Panth, what will be our role in the 21st century? How are we going to actually perform our duty to let the Nanak Panth cherish and keep growing? We've lost a lot. It's time to reflect. Thank you very much.
Blessed are you, sir, for having undergone this journey. Thank you so much, Amardeep Virji. Coming to the last speaker of the day, unfortunately, she is not keeping too well. But nonetheless, we at EduSikh would like to introduce her to you and thereafter play a video that she has recorded for all of us. Dr. Rashmeet Kaur, an educationist, is an author and poet. She teaches at the Center for English Studies at Central University of Gujarat, Gandhinagar. An indefatigable disseminator of knowledge, she was recognized as an inspired teacher for the President of India's in-residence program at Rashtrapati Bhavan, New Delhi in June 2015. She has varied interests ranging from literature of or from the margins, post-colonial studies, Australian literature, and Sikh studies. Dr. Rashmeet Kaur has been involved in translating from English into Punjabi and vice versa. She works on areas related to literature of margins, social movements, and studies of violence and trauma. Her recent work has been on violence studies, engaging with discourses on women and violence, and 1984 anti-Sikh carnage in Delhi. Her most recent book is Black November, Writings on Anti-Sikh Massacres of 84 and the Aftermath, Speaking Tiger 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and let's listen to the address by Dr. Rashmeet Kaur.
Amardeep ji, you'll have to make me the host again.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so that I can show the video. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you.
Apologies for not being able to join live today. But at the same time, this is one of the most proud moments for me that I would cherish throughout my life. As I hold this book, this is going to be the most prized possession that's going to stay with me forever. There has been great pleasure in doing this book. Guru Sahib has showered his grace on the three of us, Paramjit ji, Charanjit ji, and myself, when we could together work on this, particularly at a time when pandemic had hit all of us. And at the same time, we were all indoors and making sense of what life was offering to us. This book added a great deal of positivity in our lives. We all went through several moments and pleasurable moments while we were doing this book. I need to thank each and every contributor for readily agreeing to do this book with us, to contribute their essays, and to bring it to a level when it transcended age, gender, boundary, caste, creed, and almost everything. So this book becomes for everybody, teenagers, adults, parents can read them to their children. It's going to make a lot of sense to those who are seeking, who are in this journey of spiritual, attainment, and even to live a good life. I mean, this book is everything. Take a copy, read it, enjoy it, and I'm sure you would like it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. We wish you a very hearty and a very quick recovery. Of course, Tusharji, we also hope you will feel at the top of your health soon again. With that, we have a few questions that have been pushed on the chat box, and I strongly encourage everybody else to push their queries as well. Let this be an interactive session where you can speak and have your questions answered, or you can push your questions via the chat box. A question by Harwan Singh ji is, and I think this is a very pertinent question. What are your authentic sources for the historical aspects of seeking Guru Nanak, if it is other than Sri Guru Granth Sahib ji? Because as we know today, the Sikh history is heavily corrupted and tainted with miracles and fake stories of Guru Nanak ji. So it's an open question to any of the participants who would like to address this question. The originality. All right, Amardeep ji. Yes, you need to be unmuted. Just a moment, please.
Yes, done.
Perfect.
Right. So after I'm done, whom do I bring back? Because this seems to be, we need to go. Do I bring from Paramjit or KP Singh? Or any, right? Okay. So, I think I alluded to this in my discussion. Guru Nanak needs to be understood through his writings, which are his verses. That's the only source. But you cannot throw the baby in the bathtub. Historical references are important, whether it be in the form of stories or even if you see Buddha, Jatakas are there, right? Every spiritual leader's followers do write about them. They write because of their love for the spiritual leader, but they do leave some indications, and it's left for us to interpret them. And the way I would define is, if you want to actually understand Guru Nanak, you need to understand how you need to unravel the metaphors in which Guru Nanak talks. And therefore, as I said, the allegory of his narratives and the stories require a deeper sense of metaphoric unraveling. And for that, you have to go to Gurbani. Over to you, Iniji.
You want to share something, Amardeep ji?
No, I'm trying to just get myself from the mute back to her. It's not happening.
To Inni Kaurji.
Yeah, but I'm not able to do that. So
yeah, okay, that's done.
I'm not able to do that. I just don't see that coming up.
All right.
Yeah, it's done. It's done. Yes,
it's done. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. That question is really pertinent in today's day and age. But that question there was a little harshness there that has been tainted and all that. I wouldn't go that much with the words. What Amardeep said was, you will find the Guru in his words, in the Guru Granth. But now let's just take it in our minds. What are the stories? The Puratan Janam Sakis, they are told by believers of what they have experienced. Now think about it, when you are telling a story of somebody who you love dearly, there is going to be an element of you in that story. The story itself, what actually happened in your family, stays true, but it is through your lens you relate that story. And the closer you are to that subject matter, that's the way it happens. Fortunately, we have places like Kartarpur was there, right? We have places of the historicity, and that's where Amardeep's work comes in. So we have the history, and then we have also the words of the Guru. It's only 550 years old. We are the only faith where the founders, the Guru's message is in the original. It hasn't been passed down in the sense it's written. Nothing can change from that, right? So we're very fortunate that this has happened. This all is there. But the Puratan Janam Sakis, I would not throw them out at all. They are solid work. Bhai Gurdas' work is solid work. The work of Bhai Mani Singh and all the scholars that have been done, which are the closest during the contemporary period. If you study the work of Bhai Nandlal Goya, who was the court poet of Dasmi Pacha. So let's be careful with how we even take or accept what is coming to us. Absolutely take in and say, where is this coming from? Where is that angle? And even these chamatkars, right? These chamatkars which you are talking about, miracles. When we portray something, so the artist needs to portray something magnificent has taken place. So he portrays this as a light flashing, as a hand this and that. Let's not get carried away what the artist has portrayed. Let's have the message behind it. And that's the message, even which I say with our translations. These are things which we are trying to bring forward. But they're very much there. Let's go to the root of it. What is actually being said? And the closer you get to the Guru, the closer you get to the Shabad, these things which you are looking at will dissipate because you have encountered the sweetness, the fragrance. The scientist can describe the mango to you beautifully, can tell you the attributes of the mango, what is the composition and everything. But when you eat that mango, and when you begin to write about that mango, your writing will be very different. It'll be nothing what the scientist has written. So which is the truth? The experience or the intellectual? That is up to you to figure it out. That's all I have to say. Fantastic.
What a wonderful explanation, especially that allegory you created between the mango and the experience of eating a mango. If I could just hold you on another question, because this, I think, having gone through your website, I think is something pertinent for you, Inni Kaurji. And this is the question by Manak Singh, who writes for his son. He says, as a father, I am seeking key messages from Guru Nanak Dev Ji's teachings for my children, albeit for today's youth. I beseech you, if you could share any thoughts in this direction from your explorations.
Well, the one thing that you will need to, well, which you can share with your child, and it is very difficult for every parent to do that. It is extremely difficult for every human being to do that. If you bring up your child saying that tere vich jyot hai, Rab di jyot hai. Think about that, what it does to you, that you will treat your child with respect. It begins at home. If you do not do that, whatever you preach, whatever you say is mere preaching. You live the message, and that is how you share the message. When you say, I believe what Amardeep said, that there is only one, and when you look and treat as everyone as one who enters your house, every interaction, for the child, it will be normal to do that. And when you say, when you are out protesting, at the farmers' protest, when you go and take your child, or at any protest, because the Guru stood there. And Babar Vani, he went to prison. This is how you teach your child. This is the message. It's not just preaching. It is actually you practicing. So I'm being a little, I work with children, and I get encountered this time and time again. I mean, I'm at camps for 2 weeks with them, and basically what the children tell me is, yes, what you are saying and what we are learning at camp and everything, the teachings are very different from what is being practiced at home. So they see a dichotomy and they are confused. So my humble request would be, do not confuse your children, because you will lose them. And if they are not connecting to the message, it is because we are not living the message. And if Amardeep Singh, his last slide said, what are we doing for the Panth in the 21st century, the Nanak Panth? Well, that's upon us, right? If we do not live the message of Ek Onkar and accept and become vast, which the Guru has said, if you read Asativar, I mean, it's so clear for us to become vast, accepting, instead of becoming narrower and narrower. And there is something I want us to say. Amardeep Ji, as much as, I have great respect for your work and what you're saying. But there is one thing which I will say. The Guru Granth Sahib was protected by the Khalsa. It is the Khalsa. Everyone loves the Nanak, but the ones who gave their head to protect and serve the Guru Granth is the Khalsa, is the one who has committed themselves. And a Khalsa is not just a Bana, please do not get me wrong. A Khalsa is one who has made an allegiance, a declaration to the world that I owe my allegiance to this Panth, and I will do anything and everything to protect it. And therefore, they are at that stage. I'm a lover, I'm a seeker, I'm a practitioner, but I'm not a Khalsa. I haven't made that declaration. And the ones who've made that declaration, the onus is on them to live that higher style, because that is a public declaration they have made. So while we are all Nanak Panthis and everything, the ones who have declared to give their head, to give everything to protect this, they are the Khalsas. And we must recognize them. And they have paid a price over the centuries. We know that. And we acknowledge that. And we must.
Fantastic. You're so right. It's not just about the Bana. It's not just about our identity, but our deeds that differentiate us. Absolutely. Tusharji, there is a question that is going to take us back to a statement you made earlier today, that Bapu, he heard a lot of Gurbani. would it at all be possible for you to share some of the shabads that inspired Bapu?
Tusharji, again, please unmute yourself again.
I have written about it in the essay that I have submitted to the book. I think one of the shabads that, or the bhajans that Bapu held dearly and was his favorite and was sung in his ashram was Sadho Manka Man Tyago. And I think the reason was that Bapu himself believed in being humble and humble. And the whole song talks about the importance and greatness of being humble. And in today's time, it becomes very pertinent when we see these babas and gurus and things with overinflated egos and idea of their own self and importance. When this message needs to be told about if you are great, truly great, then you have to give up your ego. Because as long as ego is there, true enlightenment will never happen. And I think that is where, for Bapu, one of his favorites was Sadho Manka Man Tyago. And I have mentioned that in my essay also.
Right. Of course. So we look forward to, of course, reading more about that in the book, Seeking Nanak. And a question, Charanjit ji, to you is Seeking Nanak about the writer's personal experience as a practitioner or just a reflection on the Guru's teachings and travelings?
Charanjit ji, you'll have to unmute yourself.
How I see Seeking Nanak is this. We all function on different levels. There are some of us who I would call are, I'm using a word which I'm not very happy with, but the uninitiated. Okay? But we do understand Nanak on a certain level. Some of us are very regular visitors to the Gurdwaras and to the other sources of Gurbani, and we have a deeper knowledge. Some of us have read a lot of Gurbani. Now, each of us understands the message of Nanak on a different level. I also feel that sometimes when you listen to the Jaram Sakhis, for example, and there are people who believe literally in all that the Jaram Sakhi says, I think they are able to absorb the message on a very different level. So I think Seeking Nanak has to move from one phase to the other and then to a higher and higher level. To reach the level of actually understanding Nanak, from seeking to understanding, I think requires a deep understanding of the scriptures. It requires a deep understanding of Gurbani. You need to understand the historical context. You need to go to the literary value. I think, as Dr. Gill said last year in his previous book, this is a major literary text and it has all the complexity and much more of a literary discourse. Understanding that requires years and years of study. So I think we all need to understand there are different stages. When I'm in grief, I understand Nanak on a different level. When I understand Nanak with the help of my mind intellectually, it's a different level. There are times when I just need some solace and I get it. So I think we all need to seeking Nanak is for me a moment to moment process, and it takes years and years before one can even understand the basics of the message when you read the Gurbani. I think this is how I would look at it. One needs to move from one stage to the other. That's how I would look at it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Charanjit ji. Then I think the last question coming up is that these days, and I think it's been addressed earlier by Amardeep Virji, and of course Inni Kaurji as well, that these days Sakhis are being challenged. So what are ways we can find to rectify what belongs to Guru Sahibs? Like Guru Nanak Dev Ji talks about the atrocities by Babur in the Shabad Khurasam Khasmana Kiya Hindustan Darya, or about the times ahead in the Shabad Jaise Mein Aave Khasam Ki Bani. So can we correlate Janam Sakhis with Gurbani? I think to some extent you've answered this question, but if you could throw more light on this.
So, you know, the Sikh Research Institute has begun a project on the annotation of the Guru Granth Sahib. And in there is what we have also done is where we can find the historical context of where this Shabad was revealed or what it is pertaining to. I think that would be the better place for people who need to have that understanding to go to. And if they go to the Sikri website, sikhri.org, and go to the Guru Granth Sahib tab, that would help, particularly in the Asa Ki War and in the Barama and the Shabads, where the Shabad was revealed and the historicity. But, Sakhis have been challenged. Yes, Guru Sahib was challenged. So why are we so worried about what is being challenged and what is not? I mean, if you looked at the fifth Padsha, why was he martyred? Why was he beheaded? Because what he was compiling was of such great significance. The challenges will always be around us. Our idea is how our thought processes should be, how do we overcome them in our own minds? Let's not worry about what the world is doing. If you're going to go and fight, if you want to do that, then have enough wisdom and knowledge and then address it in a kind and loving manner. But challenges will always be there. And if you look at today, in India, what is happening with Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib's Gurpurab celebrations and the narrative that is being coming out of the Indian state is very different from the Sikh narrative, which is very different from the narrative of 30 years ago. So manipulations and storytelling and all will always be there. But the people who are the practitioners, the people who are the ones who are protecting the legacy, it is the onus is on them. There's so much revisionism going on. Your school books are being changed. So that's going to continue on happening. It is when we educate ourselves, when we get closer to Shabbat, we will really understand and be able to have the wisdom and the tools to answer these challenges in a productive manner, in a manner which is befitting of the Khalsa response, which is befitting of the Guru. When all other means have been exhausted, and when all other means have been exhausted, then we fight.
Yes.
Amardeep ji, you wanted to add something to it.
Can you?
Yes, please. Yes, please continue, Amardeep ji.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you, Ani. So I just want to add a little bit here on this one. So let's just take one verse, for instance, because the question is really about having the Gurbani, if that's the anvil, right? Because that is the anvil, nothing else. All stories are, as Ani said, that they are either the artist or the writer's perceptions, right? And what really is the anvil is the Gurbani, nothing else. And we've grappled with this in the making of Allegory, a Tapestry of Guru Nanak's Travels, which is 18 hours of content in 24 episodes. It's a massive work. It's taken us 3 years, and with minimalistic support, we managed to navigate through countries where we put ourselves at life risks. But we are hoping what will come out will be a modern digital Janam Sakhi kind of a material with anvil of Gurbani for the future generations. Now let's take one Shabad. Khurasan Khasmana Kiya Hindustan Raya. Referring to Babur's attack into Punjab. Khurasan, what we are talking about today, ISIS is talking about Khorasan, they're dividing that thing. He comes from the Central Asia. Khorasan khasmana kiya. He destroyed it. Hindustan did. He comes and makes the Hindustan, fearful. Yeah. Guru Nanak wrote that beautiful shabad and he's telling about his state of affairs. But he falls short of telling you where has it happened. Where is the place? In our narrative, we say it is at Ahmedabad that Guru Nanak experiences the attack of Babur. Okay, when you go and read Baburnama, Baburnama is a comprehensive text, right? Baburnama does not even mention Ahmedabad. Baburnama mentions Sialkot, but he does not mention Ahmedabad. Does that mean that I now discard the fact that just because an author like Baburnama does not write about him going to Ahmedabad, that means he wouldn't have passed through Ahmedabad? Logically, Sialkot and Ahmedabad are nearby, so I can't discount it because people in my tradition, while the gurus were continuing to live, the tradition between the gurus was going down, have written it. Now, we have to therefore accept it as a narrative coming down, but at the end of the day, what matters is what's the destruction that happened in the Punjab, what Guru Nanak is pained about, and what's the message he's giving, how he's challenging Nanak in the words, and what's the pain that he's experiencing, and what's the message he's giving. That's the allegoric revelation that we are aiming to bring forward, and therefore we take that approach. Every Janam Sakhi text material, we have got something like a body of 260 shabads recorded in the rags in what Guru Nanak has sung, in the instruments, in the style, because today's conditions are the Gurdwaras where the harmonium is there with the tabla. Guru Nanak and Bhai Mardana were not traveling with a harmonium and neither were they traveling with a tabla or a pakhavaj. They were with a rabab, which is a pluck instrument, which has an inherent beat, and there are certain rags in which we have written the shabads. And we've taken those rags from the Janam Sakhis, where that particular incident has happened, and given it a shape in that particular form of the rag, without any tablas, without any harmoniums. We're hoping that's what is going to connect us back to the source, which is what is really important. The rest is all immaterial. If you can forget the stories by understanding the verses, I think we will have achieved the objective.
Right, absolutely. And I think that also answers another question that was actually pushed in within this question, which was, what are we, how are we designed, or how are we designing our reaction to what's happening around us? That is, how can we contribute to the Sikh Panth in the years to come? I think both of you have answered that question. I think Tusharji wanted to say something.
Yes, thank you. Although nobody has asked this question, I just thought that I would like to mention this. While I was researching my book, Let's Kill Gandhi, which deals with the murder and the last years of his life, where, of course, partition is one of the biggest stories of that time. It's very unique in today's context when I think of it. There is a statement attributed to Muhammad Ali Jinnah, where when somebody talks to him about, how the scars will heal and whether normalcy will return to the subcontinent, he says within a few years, Hindus and Muslims will be friends again. But he says Muslims and Sikhs can never become friends ever in time to come, and a long, long time to come. The irony of the fact, when you look at it from today's perspective, is there's so much hate, Hindu-Muslim hate. And you don't see that in the community that Jinnah said can never reconcile, Sikhs and Muslims. And that leads me to believe that the very foundation of oneness that is within the Sikh faith and the Nanak Panth, as it has been referred to, maybe is the balm that is helping heal those scars so easily. And because we have only been talking about avenging the past, that we have not been able to allow the scars to heal. I think this is a very important thing in today's context. When you seek Nanak, then this becomes the most important aspect of that seeking of that knowledge to make it relevant to today's time. And I think this would become the greatest example of his teachings in contemporary times, the ability to heal so well in our times. I think that is the most important for me, the takeaway from this.
Absolutely. Thank you for that wonderful insight, Tusharji. Um, as we come to the end of the session today, one promise from EduSec will be that we'll have many more such sessions in the near future. And as promised by our founder trustee, that we'll have at least 2 book releases every year, which means we'll have many more opportunities to interact with more like-minded people, and of course, enhance our understanding of not just being a good Sikh, but also being a good and a great human being. It'll be remiss of me if we were unable to thank Jaswinder Singh Batra for his wonderful technical support and guidance, and for taking care of the entire Zoom session. Jaswinder ji, thank you so much. The authors, obviously all 30 of them deserve a lot of praise. The panelists for today's session, Nirupama ji, Tushar ji, Inni ji, and Amardeep ji, I think your insights were truly fantastic. We understood so much more about how not just to be a Sikh, but how to be a great follower or a good follower of Guru Nanak Dev ji. And of course, a very special and a heartfelt thanks goes out to Ishmeet ji, Charanjit ji, and Paramjit ji for, of course, compiling all of these writings and putting that thought across of compiling these writings and then spreading them among the Sikh community. Thank you very much to everybody, the attendees, for being with us today. Our original idea was we should limit this to around 105 to 110 minutes. And I'm aghast. And at the same time, I'm pleased to note that we have gone beyond 2 hours and 15 minutes, which of course is indicative of the quality of the debate and discourse that happened today. So with those words, we thank everybody and wish you a wonderful day ahead or a night, depending where you are in the world. Thank you so much. And here we look forward to being with you again in our next edition by EduSec. Once again, a request, please follow us on various social media platforms and help us reach out to even more people. Thank you very much. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.